All right, so Shannon and I just did a podcast and then decided after we took a little smoke break that we'd come back and just dig into some of the questions that I had after the research that I did. So, if you're wondering, why are these two people sitting next to each other talking? Like, I get it. They have pretty good chemistry, right? They seem to get along well, have a lot to talk about.
Right.
How did that happen? Well, Shannon and I are coworkers, and we sit about 5 feet apart. And one day, somebody came from speaking to Shannon and came directly to me and was like, Jared, did you know Shannon played football in college? And immediately I was like, really? Because I'm a moron, actually, because you research people before you engage with them. That way you have some things that you know, which would lead you to be inquisitive about a human, which is a better way to start a friendship.
Right.
So I just sat down and Googled this doofus, right? So I'm like, oh shit, he actually played at St. Francis, which is a college in Indiana. So if you're wondering what this podcast is about, it's about football. We also happen to live in the state of Indiana. And I know that not everybody lives in Indiana, and that doesn't necessarily mean this podcast isn't for you. This is a podcast about life. Hopefully, the message that we're trying to convey is how things really go. What really happens. So one of the things that I did when I researched my topic is that because I write for Stampede Blue and I edit their work, I sent your college film to the two guys that I know that are either defensive backs themselves, and Stephen Reed played wide receiver and defensive back in college, and I think he played lacrosse in college too. And then the other guy, Faraz Majid, literally scouts cornerbacks for a living, and he's also a pharmacist. So we're not talking about like stupid people. We're talking hyper intelligent people that literally evaluate talent, cornerbacks. And here's one of the things. So I'll tell you what I saw when I watched your play. So first of all, you were 39-10 as a college football player, which is outstanding. That's winning basically 80% of your games.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
That comes along with 2 national championship appearances, one in 2016 and one in 2017. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the one in 2017, I was no longer there. They won it back-to-back national championships. My year, we won the first one. And then the year before that, we got put out in the semifinals, so it wasn't another championship.
So it was another deep run. So one of the things when I was looking up, because when you watch someone play football and you're like, holy shit, they're really good at sports, but you're watching them play, say, like NAIA ball, there are a lot of players, maybe not from the NAIA, but Division II, Division III, that and wind up playing in the NFL. So what I did was I evaluated you myself. You are a fearless and consistent hunter and a tackler. When I watch you play football, you quickly diagnose plays and assess your position in the play and attempt to make a tackle or make a play on the ball. That you should be commended for that. A lot of the people that we evaluate, we talk about it amongst ourselves as him being a watcher. And you can speak to that, right? You understand when you feel that when I say there's active football players and there's watchers, right? So you're a high energy, trying to get in on every tackle. And one of the things that I noticed that you ought to be particularly proud of is when you hit somebody, you put a hit on somebody. And one of the plays I watched, so I want to tell you about this play that I watched with my friend, okay? I know he's over here beaming and can't wait to talk, okay? So one of the things that I look at is your ability to shed a block while pursuing a tackle. Frequently, players get what's called lost in that they swim or they try to use a rip motion, and the lineman gets underneath them and just drives them off out of the hole.
If they get to him,
one of the things that I noticed that he does in his highlight, and I was like, whoever picked that highlight is a smart man. So whoever picked this highlight shows me a play where it looked like power to the strong. So I'm trying to illustrate this for people that aren't like football savvy. They're trying to run the ball to the outside to the left towards the bottom side of the screen. You're playing sort of zone cover corner in that you start in press, which is so funny to me because they like starting in press is like what's it like throwing the red flag in front of the bull, right?
Yeah,
like just begging that receiver to like, you trying to go deep, right? Man, so when you get up in their face, and I'm thinking like he's going to be in press coverage here. Sure. But then right before the ball snapped, so one of the problems that I have is because I'm not a cornerback myself, I have to ask you this question. Yep. And I'm asking trial by fire, right? Like asking you questions that you don't know that this is coming. Is it normal for a cornerback to start in press and before the ball is snapped to casually stroll backwards a few yards, changing your coverage at the last second, completely possibly throwing off that play? Is that normal? Is that coached? Or is that something that with experience that you just learned that it doesn't matter really what happens?
Yeah, it's a defensive scheme. Even if you watch NFL, you will see, you see the safety, you see the cloud safety come down, you see him shift during the play. That's more of just, the scheme of the play. But far as, reading and reacting, you can't teach far as speed and agility. That's just, that's on you. And as far as me, like I said, I was very blessed enough to have speed and come out of my breaks really fast and, just be able to cover ground. And, with me, us reading, trying to show press and then backing up to a cover 3 and I see the ball come out real fast. Obviously watching a lot of film on that, knowing their presets, with trying to diagnose that.
So you knew that play was coming.
Absolutely.
And you also knew that you were getting hit by the pulling guard. You knew that hit was coming.
It's coming.
And I thought he's either going to get chewed up or he's about to man up this 6'3", 275-pound man. And you shucked him. And I thought, that took a lot of energy, right? Like, that's a guy 100 pounds more than... Not 100 pounds, dude. That's a lot. 75 pounds. Pretty much, though. Like, 75 pounds heavier than you. Yeah. And you shuck him with one arm. But then you also knew you were going to get hit by a tight end.
Absolutely.
And you took that tight end man-to-man and moved him out of the way and then made a tackle. And it wasn't one of those diving in the hole, barely caught the dude by the ankle tackles. Your shoulder pad hit his hips. Yeah. And I was like, do you know how much power you have to shuck a guy that weighs 100 pounds more than you and then take a bench press of a tight end and move him out of the way and then also make a form tackle? I was like, I would be so fucking proud. If that was my dad, I would just have a gif of that shit on my phone and look at it every day. Yeah. He ate that man for breakfast. He ate that man for lunch. And then dinner. Like, that was I just want to commend you. Like, that was one of the best highlights. And it was not a common highlight. Everybody wants to see big hit on somebody. They want to see a interception, specifically from the cornerback position, an interception return for touchdown, right? Of course. That's what you're always in for, that big tutty, right?
Of course, yeah,
but
big play mentality.
That play stood out to me so much, I felt like I had to iterate it for other people. Like, you knew the play was coming, which means you did your homework, right? That football brain is in play here, and that's one of the things that I noticed about your highlight. A lot of the plays that I watched you make are heady plays. It's not so much to be involved in the play, it's knowing your role within the play. And as a cornerback, obviously your roles widely vary from guys like safeties or like linebackers. Their roles are a little more limited. You have to play a little wider as a cornerback. So to keep going, so you had no problem hand fighting, no problem taking on a bigger player, no problem getting into a wide receiver's chest and making it difficult for them to get a clean release and start on a route. 100%. You don't frequently say that about the same player.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
There's plenty of guys that can get into a wide receiver's chest. Yeah. But then can they also retreat, get their hips turned, whether it's outside or inside, stay in that wide receiver's hip? One of the things that... Another thing I want to tell you that this dude does, okay? In his highlight reel is frequently, like I said, he baits the quarterback. Okay? And he does it so often that we actually talked about it among ourselves. Is this a technique that needs to be corrected or celebrated? So what we were trying to figure out is, do we like that he does this, or do we want him to be more consistent in sitting in man and actually getting into his chest and getting off line of scrimmage, doing that a little more often? Yeah. If you look back, do you think maybe I should have actually gotten that dude's chest a little more often because you're so good at it? I just wonder if you ever left games and you were like, I could have gotten that dude's chest a couple more times.
And it creates a psychological thing, man. If you're beating people
he's gonna get alligator on
all day long, man. You know, they don't want to go up against you. And you know what? Our university, you know, like I said, even with our program, they're doing something, you know, great there with the players. And you know, they play the right way, but it comes to a point to where you have to play snap the whistle. And you know, I take that to heart because it's like, you know, I've seen many people that I play with who are great athletes who had their season-ending, career-ending injuries. And it's just like, man, you know, but they went hard on that play. You know what I'm saying? It's not the fact that, you know, they're just babying. No, man, they went hard. And, you know, I had some guys when I was a freshman who were just fearless. You know what I mean? And they went on to play some pro ball. And, you know, just things that I looked upon them and how their work ethic, how they practice. I wanted to carry myself like that in the game because what you practice is how you play.
Oh, for sure.
You know, pretty much. So, I mean, obviously when it comes to, you know, doing my job as a press corner or as a coverage corner, yes, always do your job because everybody on that field has a job to do. But at the same time, you still have to make a play. You know what I mean? So regardless of what I was doing as far as, you know, breaking out of coverage, you know, read and react. You know what I mean? Are you going to make that big play? I mean, at the same time, I mean, that's why you're out there. You know, you're out there to do a job, but you're actually still out there to play defense. And the mentality of a DB is just like, man, we aren't the general on the field. No. But we want to be the general.
You're causing... So what we questioned, again, was should this be celebrated? Should this be coached? What we established, though, after watching 4 games of film, so it's not like we didn't do our homework. We did our homework on you. It actually worked. A pretty consistent percentage of the time. I would say about 5 times a game. So think about this being a heady football player that's highly active, in on a lot of plays, and also, for far lack of better words, effing with the quarterback's head the whole time. Because what ends up happening is, because you are not playing press coverage anymore as often as you are being a cover corner, covering an area of the field. But what you do is they're in the same formation, and I think it's like trips left. And he's on the outside receiver. And they've ran this play. I think the 4 games we watched, it was the same play that they were running.
Pretty much.
Trips left. You're running like a 5-yard in with an under receiver. Then you're running like a post and then like a fade on the outside.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so he knows the guy on the outside was actually running an option route on the several times where they tried to run an in on you as a response to him rolling in and out of coverage. So to explain it to people, because we can't just show you video, right? To explain what happens is that because you roll in coverage, the quarterback signals to the receiver over him, who's supposed to be running a fade, which is why you roll out of coverage, because you know he's going deep down the sideline, and you would appreciate that little bit of a cushion to get your hips around, so you don't have to try to do that when he's on top of you, right? Where if he pushes you, he knocks you off, right? You want to turn your hips early in that route. And so by rolling out of coverage, the quarterback, I watched it happen for the record, so it's not, I'm not telling you what happened. I'm telling you what happened. The quarterback says he's got our route. He's backed off. He knows we're running a fade, and he changes the route to a dig, and not even a dig. It was a straight in. So what I watch you do, Shannon, is let the guy get into his route, and even get to his cut, and the receiver's already made the cut, and Shannon still has not turned his hips, and the quarterback goes to throw this in route, and he chases him down from basically being in an athletic position, beats the ball to the man, and does it like 5 times a game for a pass break. Now, obviously, in 4 games, he had 17 pass breakups, so we must have picked 4 good games to watch.
Yeah, so, I mean, even in my whole entire career, it was just like, you know, I didn't have the luxury of being an All-American at St. Francis. You know what I mean? That's the thing, too. You know, but
me neither, bro.
At the same time, it's just like, you know, when I had got out there, man, I made the best of my opportunities, and the games that we actually had covered, those are the games that I actually played the most in and made something happen. So, I mean, in my career, man, you know, like I said, it was more me just owning my role, but I wanted the big play because it's a competitive world out there in St. Francis. Now, and the more big plays you make, the more consistently you're doing that, the more tick you're going to get. So, even after, the film that we watch, that you guys have watched, you will see me doing some big things in those games because it's just like, I had to make the best of my opportunities.
Right.
So,
because you never know when the opportunity goes away, and that's kind of what we'll wrap up with. So, when we say that you're a national champion, we have to talk about what happened after college.
Sure. Yeah, man.
So, I have a question I don't know that you know the answer to, and it's not loaded either. Why didn't St. Francis host a pro day? Why don't smaller schools host pro days?
Man, I just believe there's a lot of, far as the recruitment of, getting a smaller school athlete to the next level, it's a long shot. There might be a guy or two, like in my class who was more of Seth Cope. He was more of a guy that, got the scouts at the practice. They're there to check them out. And, there wasn't too many other teams that were there to watch a consensus of us. So, like, Ball State has about 9 or 10 guys they want to put on display every year for a pro day.
Sure.
And, as far as St. Francis, there's not too many of us that they can explain on there for a pro day because either one, they're not, there anymore, or for two, it's just like, after NAIA, people don't want to play anymore because, they know it's going to be a long shot and they're kind of burnt out that time. But, as far as the NAIA standpoint, I believe that they should do more pro days because, there is talent at NAIA level, and we have to actually go knock on another university's door to say, hey, can we go ahead and get a tryout because we have a couple teams looking at us and want to put our talent on display for these people. And, that can throw off a scout because it's like, I'm here for Ball State, but you got these other guys from other schools coming here to, do this. And, they're not really we're not really unheard of to as far as, we're on their list. But, we could catch the ride there. You know what I mean? So it's more of a big shot of us trying to, impress these scouts. But, yeah.
But how did that work exactly? How did you get to Ball State?
Yeah, man. So, actually.
Like, did you drive, like, you're from Anderson. So you just come home from school.
Yep.
Let's start it this way. How far in advance did you know you were going to Ball State for pro day?
About a month and a half.
Okay, so you had 45 days. How long? So from the day you found out, how long had it been since you played a football game?
About 3 months.
So it had been 90 days since your last football game. Were you still in game shape?
Yeah, man. After...
Like, you stayed in shape the whole time?
Yes, and I had to because, even after...
Well, obviously. Yeah. But, like, you, not knowing you were going to get a pro day, stayed in game shape 90 days after your last game?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So, how did you find out? Was like you got a letter in the mail? You got an email?
Yeah. So when I say, guys, this was a long shot on how I got the announcement of my pro day. Is that, with me, I after college, I was, pretty much done with football and kind of not saying I'd given up, but I was just, I'm content on how I ended my career.
Sure, you're national champion.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
So, you don't have anything to prove.
Absolutely. And, I was content on doing that. And, my dad is probably my biggest supporter when it comes to me and my dreams. And he always knew I wanted to play football in the NFL or at least at the next level. So he didn't let me give up on that. So, as far as I had a team working, as far as a PR team and my family looking to get me an agent and looking to, elsewhere. But, little that I know, as far as the playoff push we had my senior year, I had, a guy that was in my corner, looking out for me as far as, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he, basically recommended me to stay in shape, go to some tryouts. I was actually went to the regional combine of the NFLs. So you have a big combine and then you have 5 different regional combines. Yeah, for like people that didn't get invited to the big one. So I went to the one down in New Orleans and, had a, okay day down there. And then, I wanted to keep pursuing this. My numbers weren't the greatest there. So I was like, I set my pro day. But yeah, as far as the formal how I actually got my pro day, it was just, me having an insight with the Pittsburgh Steelers and, they're were being supportive of, me still wanting to play the game, and they knew what I still had in me. So it was just more, hey, we're going to invite you. We want you to come here. I'm going to put your name in here, and we want to see you in person. So just more through the grace of God is having a person in my corner throughout my college career to want me to, showcase my talents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a good story in and of itself. Simply having someone still involved with football at the professional level. Yeah. Someone from the, without naming name drop. Mm-hmm. We're not name dropping here. Yeah. But someone from a professional organization encouraged you to stay in shape. Mm-hmm. And if you get an opportunity to try out, do it.
Absolutely.
And when did the regional combine happen? I'm assuming that's between
March. It was March 17th.
So 60 to 65 days after your last football game, right? Yep. Your last football game was probably January, February, right?
No, my last football game was December 17th.
Okay. So
that was a national championship game.
Okay, and then the regional combine was after the pro day?
No, it was before. I had my pro day on April 2nd. Mm-hmm.
I know what your day of at Ball State numbers were, mm-hmm. and we decided those were below what we would consider NFL mm-hmm. Quality standards. But there's always a caveat. You ran a 4.5 that got dismissed. What happened?
Man, your guess is as good as mine on that 4.5.
Did you leave early?
Yeah, it's more of a jump. As far as as far as my start. I had a really good start.
Right, you ran a 4.5. You had a great start.
I had a really good start. I finished strong, but we get 2, and I know the second one was the one that was official time. So
right.
They had an unofficial
4.7, which is slow for a corner. But the 4.5, mm-hmm. that 4.5 is $1 million 4.5.
Yeah.
It just didn't count, and that's for the record. I'm not trying to elongate the draft analysis process, or trying to hinder the growth and development of players. But I think it's kind of lazy I think you should get 2 timed 40s.
Yeah, for sure. Even at my pro day. Yeah, you get 2. Pro day, yeah, you get 2. You get 2. You get unofficial.
You F up 1, and then you get 2, mm-hmm. because in my thought process, in my brain as an animal, right, I always try to think like an animal first.
Yeah.
And if my mission is to sprint as fast as I can for 40 yards in a timed environment, mm-hmm. and I run a great time, but I have left too early, in my brain, I'm going to pull up on that second one, I think, because I'm afraid I might get hurt. Right now, it's just the way your brain works. It's the... the snowball effect, right? Like mm-hmm. now I think you come back and run a 4.7 and you run yourself out of the building.
Yeah.
And then when we look at your broad jump, again, you had an unofficial 9.9, mm-hmm. which is top 10 in any draft class. It's NFL talent, but doesn't count. So my question is, did you fall forward or backward?
Forward. That's exactly what I did.
You fell forward, which means that you didn't have your heels extended as well as you could have, because you could have taken a different angle on landing, mm-hmm. and you probably would have went well over 10.3, mm-hmm. which would have put you...
I would put me in the top percentile.
Let me ask you this legitimate question.
Yeah.
Before the broad jump of your life, had you ever done the broad jump?
We've done it every summer at the University of St. Francis, but obviously it's just, it's not competitive like that. You don't have NFL scouts looking at you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Nobody's
the pressure's
teaching you the proper form.
No. And you can fall forward, you can fall backwards, just stand up where you're at. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it
So I actually asked one of the guys, Zach Hicks, was at the Senior Bowl, was at the Combine, shit like that. Mm. So I was asking him, like, what's the question asked on a broad jump, fall forward or back? Mm. And he was like, yeah, actually, because you'll know whether it was form or physical fitness.
Exactly.
If you fall backwards, they're not in good enough shape to even get the number they got. But if they're falling forwards, they had more in them, and they just needed to take a better angle on landing. He probably would have ended up. Man. But so the 9.9 would have been good enough to get him drafted. The 10.3, he'd have been a first-round draft pick,
hopefully.
Right? So that's that. And then the 9.6 is, again, like running yourself out of the gym, right? It's not enough. But the question is, what do the numbers look like at the regional combine?
My 40 time was a 4.72. My first one, the next one was a 4.68. And we had a 3-cone drill. I ran a 4.56 on my 3-cone drill. And then we did broad jump. I broad jumped a 9.8 at my regional combine. And then, let me see, what else did we do? We just did position drills from there. So,
this is all position drills.
Yeah, this all position drills from there. So, and what's the one thing about, my regional combine results is that, I've known I could have done better, and I just didn't really prepare myself like a professional. So, I mean, I was actually down in Atlanta training at Stack Performance for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And this was 2 weeks prior before, the regional combine. So,
it's that Atlanta food, isn't it?
The Atlanta food was great.
I know.
The Atlanta food was smacking. Hey, if y'all
Bojangles, son. You got to go to the Athletic, too.
I would say,
ESPN Zone?
No, I haven't had that yet.
You haven't gone to ESPN Zone?
No, you need to go to Pascal's, though. Pascal's is the joint. I will let you know. But any barbecue joint down there is great. But no, honestly, and at Stack Performance, man, and kudos to those guys. I know they're doing some really good work for people who are actually in a draft. They get kids from all over USC,
sure.
TCU. I mean, you train with the best, literally. But, I didn't take care of my body, and I actually done a workout 2 days before would involve, the lower body of, as far as, doing some squats and, and I should have took the day off.
Sure.
But, so I was a little sluggish at my regional combine to where I was sore in my legs. I tried to take an ice bath the night before, and it just wasn't going away. So I knew that, my results there weren't me. It was just me giving my best shot of what the condition I was in, So I knew I had a pro day to fall back on, and I was basically more prepared to go ahead when I got back to Indiana to train with my trainer up in Fort Wayne, man. And God bless his heart, man. He worked with some guys. He works with Jalen Smith, plays for Dallas Cowboys, and actually the new safety from the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals. I can't think of his name right now. Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates went to Wake Forest. So, I mean, they're doing a really good thing up there. But I trained with him until the time of my pro day, and, my results were a little bit better. I actually cut some weight as well. But, I just knew I had to perform on that day because, we had some scouts at the regional combine, probably about 15 of them.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's not, it's always good to always have a pro day after a combine or anything
right.
with you guys, or as many exposures as you can, because if you're flying under the radar with NAIA or coming out of a D3 school,
right.
your name's probably is not as heard of as a guy that went to Alabama or, TCU, any of these SEC schools, big power name schools, Notre Dame. So you have to get as much exposure as you can. So I knew that, my pro day had to be better, and I did put up better results. But, as far as our format on how it went at Paul State, and kudos to them to how they ran it. But, we were pretty much gassed because we done the 40 last, and one thing I wanted to say, if I had my 40 time at the beginning of the workout, numbers could have been different because I'm not exhausted. We're doing bench press, we're doing 3-cone drill, we're doing L drill, we're doing a lot of stuff as far as exhausting our body for this one moment at the end to where, which
is the ultimate decider, right? A lot of
exactly.
teams won't even draft
finish?
You if you don't run a certain 40.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to end up this episode with is a question for you that I know we'll end the episode with, and a question for you. Do you expect me to believe that St. Francis couldn't afford to put on a pro day, and how much do you think that would have cost for them to roll out a camera, get you in a facility or let you run on a field and get times on your own campus with your boys there to watch?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost money. Like, am I wrong? Am I a bad person for poo-pooing a program that it doesn't cost anything to record your athletes and have somebody in your graphic design department put their name placard? I can do that, and I got a 2-year degree. Right? St. Francis has departments that teach this stuff, and you couldn't get some freshman that'll make and the other thing, your highlight reels on Huddle. All these D1 recruits got these big YouTube video content doesn't cost anything to make.
For sure.
Hey, so the answer to the question, do you think it costs money? It didn't cost them a dime, did it? Because this didn't cost very much to do.
Yeah, they never put on one for us, but at the same time, I think it's just the resources that we have, previous before, They
don't know how to measure 40 yards?
Yeah, they know how to do all that.
So they could have done exactly what happened at your pro day, and it wouldn't have cost them a dime.
To go ahead and just run it for themselves, yeah.
And what great exposure. You get to show off your facilities. Hey, all you small schools, you need to hire me as a consultant so you can fix this. Because here's the thing that we know, and I don't know if anybody's ever told you this. Did you know what 71% of all current NFL players were drafted in the 4th round or later, or not at all? And you look at yourself like such a long shot. Yeah. You are the big shot. The thing about it is, the kids that go to the big schools, that get all those golden opportunities where they're getting paid, they don't make it. The kids that make it, that become professional athletes, are the ones that constantly are the underdog. The ones that had to fight, and they go to the small school, and you could bring it back around and talk about Darius Leonard, right?
100%. We were just talking about that.
Super small school, unappreciated talent. A lot of people thought the Colts overdrafted the guy. Obviously, that turned out to also be false. But again, for all of you out there, the purpose of this podcast is to help the future of this sport understand that it doesn't matter where you go to school. YouTube doesn't cost you a dime. Everybody has a video camera on their phone. You can measure a 40 on your phone. You could have a few people with cameras make a highlight reel for one of your homies, and if it hits, he gets drafted, and he's a millionaire. And if he don't, it's on Huddle, and you're sitting in my living room. You know what I mean? That's the difference. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean it honestly.
100%.
The future of football is you got to take this into your own hands. And I'm not saying be violent, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you got to learn how to use a video camera. You got to learn how to use video editing software. You got to learn how to make your own highlight reel. Because if you don't, nobody sees you when you go to a small school. The kids that are getting seen are the ones that are making themselves visible. Or the parents who have money to still pay for their kids to get on an ESPN program. I'm just saying.
I mean, if you think about it, man, we live in that digital age. I mean, the more exposure that you give yourself,
and your program, you make it easier to recruit. Exactly. Kids aren't as fearful of going to a small school because you know what? If I show out in the classroom and I show out on the field, and somebody gets if I got good material on wax, it's gonna get you to the league, man. You know, it's like the reason Michael Jordan got recruited in high school is because his neighbors shot videos of him dunking in the driveway. Did y'all know that? That's the reason That's the reason he got to go to UNC.
That's powerful, man.
It's because his neighbor took home videos of him dunking in the driveway. You don't believe me? Ask him. I'm from Chicago. When I was a little kid, Michael Jordan went around to elementary schools. He told us stuff like that.
Listen to him.
Facts. The only reason I went to the University of North Carolina is because my neighbor took videos of me dunking a basketball. He didn't send them to anyone. He just had them.
John Morant, you know the story behind him? He was, after a game, he was basically just shooting around, I think somewhere in maybe in his high school gym, or it was after he's doing a little pickup game. I'm not sure the details of the whole entire,
Right, I'm not sure what happened to those videos, by the way.
But yeah, I mean, somebody, I think it was a coach that was in there just recording him, and he saw him doing his thing, and, John Morant really wasn't heavily recruited, so he said the first team that, took a chance on him, that's where he's going to go. And now look at he's at number 2, lottery pick in the draft.
Where was that kid from?
I'm not sure where he's from.
Something with the state on it. Looked like a smaller
Murray
school.
State. Oh, he went to Murray State. Huh? Yeah, he went to Murray State.
Murray State.
Yeah,
so that's what we're saying. That's not a blue blood program. That's not a Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Pac-10. It's not one of those schools. It's the little guys are the ones that make it. So we have established a purpose, right, to make the game better, to make the future of the game better. Yeah. You got to learn how to market yourselves, and you got to learn to control your destiny. It doesn't matter where you go. You can do it from anywhere.
And to that, even with my story, I didn't have my videographer at my university put together my highlight. I did that myself.
Yeah, you had to make your own highlight reel, right?
Shoot my emails out to universities, getting some things up, getting some opportunities for myself. I did it myself. Which is
awesome, right? He's self-driven. Yeah. That's also to be appreciated, but it's another thing altogether that it also didn't cost your school anything to host a pro day or put together a highlight reel for you. And the fact that they would let you, like, I feel like if I'm a head coach, I don't want to give anyone away to anywhere, right? I don't want to have a good relationship with another school, right? So I don't want my kids going to Ball State and doing a pro day because I lose future recruits to Ball State. Your homies from your high school don't want to go to St. Francis anymore. I want to go to Ball State. So you want to talk about winning the recruiting game. One of the things I know about St. Francis is that they specifically recruit for size and the defensive and offensive and defensive line, which gives them an edge in a young league, and that's how they've established dominance. So don't act like I don't see through your game, Kevin Dorsey. But the reality is, when you
keep calling him Dorsey, Kevin Donnelly.
Kevin Donnelly, sorry. I keep thinking John Dorsey because of the Bears.
God bless you, sir.
But when you think about how schools recruit and how that program gets run, and you think about how could it be better, well, one of them's hosting your own pro day. right? And trying to support your. And I'm not saying they didn't support
you. Know what's
I'm
good
sure
about
that
this program?
the coaches and your teammates were supportive. But were they at your pro day?
Yeah, a few of my teammates were, but I mean, it was only 3 of us that was there.
Only 3 of your teammates that were there.
You know, there was one name that was just, and you know, he's playing in the CFL now. My boy Seth Coate, congratulations on his journey, man. He's came a long way from our program, but I believe even now we're hosting.
He looked like a good wide receiver on the tape we watched.
Man, he was unbelievable, man.
We actually wondered about him, and then I went and Googled him, and I was like, oh yeah, he already did make it. Yeah, good for him.
Coate, if you're watching this, my boy, hey,
he's in the CFL. Like, how cool is that? Is he from Indiana too?
He's from Fort Wayne, man.
He's Fort Wayne, Indiana kid.
He's a local.
Goes to St. Francis, plays in the CFL. He's a wide receiver. Good, look really good when you watch him play. Like he plays with high shoulders. He runs clean routes and has good breaks, and he catches the stinking ball, and he's fast. Like, hey, that's a good receiver. Yeah, and what do you know? He plays in the CFL. Like, how cool is that? So we'll wrap up the podcast showing you there's hope in that. Going to small school stuff works out, right?
Absolutely.
We just talked about Seth Coates.
Absolutely.
You could talk about Darius Leonard. You can never give up. You never know when when opportunity knocks, right?
Krishan Hogan.
Krishan Hogan's another good one.
He's an NAIA product that went. He was the only one that actually went to the combine my year, the big combine on Indianapolis.
The combine.
And I mean, he wasn't drafted, got picked up by Arizona. I think they kept him for a while, and then he was released and got picked up by his own state. The Indianapolis Colts. So I mean, he's still actively on the squad right now, and. It can be a long shot, but man, if you guys are good, if you guys are putting up the numbers, I will say, man, get your name out there. Record yourself doing some routes. Have somebody record you during your games. Send your film to coaches, to colleges. I mean, there's ways and resources to go ahead to get your name out there. Even going back to St. Francis, even though we had a couple guys even before I came in that had some shot to go to the NFL and all that, but I believe that we're becoming more of a notoriety. Program, we're back-to-back national championships. What are these guys doing? Who are they bringing in? So I mean, we're sending more and more guys to pro days.
Right.
So it might even here in the near future, if your program is doing some good things, if you show out, there might be a open stage to where NAIA does host pro days. Just so they can see where this talent's coming from. So I hope St. Francis in that direction. They're producing a lot of great talent, but I do believe as far as saving. And keeping people, here at your university that, as far as a big, well-known university in the NAIA program like University of St. Francis, we should host more pro days for, us because, it doesn't stop at NAIA.
I think it'd be great to see your crowd and your family and your coaches come together one last time to have you put it all out there and see if lightning strikes, right? Because that's really what we're talking about is that much of a time difference, a lightning strike. And this dude's first-round draft pick. Like, how crazy is that? Think about that. You think lightning strikes when your whole family and friends and all your coaches and stuff are there and you're on your home field? You think lightning don't strike that one time? Mm-hmm. I think it does. I actually think it makes a difference.
I mean, think about the small name kids like Kenny Moore, man. I idolize this man's game. I mean,
for the record, that I wasn't going to tell him this until we were off camera because I didn't want to. If he's going to cry, I didn't want him to. Your pro comp is Kenny Moore.
Stop playing. I idolize
like a highly active player. So let me read this to you. Shows the ability to use multiple releases off line of scrimmage as gunner on punt duty. Shows he's the fastest person downfield every time and beats the ball to the returner often.
Yes, sir.
Either St. Francis had a legendary punter or he's clearly the fastest player on the field, which is a weapon.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then we said that you missed a few interception opportunities, otherwise would have been blown up your highlight reel. You had a forced fumble, and you missed the recovery. You overran the football. He started celebrating the forced fumble and ran right over the ball. And I was like, "Damn it, he needed to get that." You almost had a sack.
Yep.
But you. So one of the things that when you're diagnosing someone's plays, you got to tell them where they made mistakes. On his highlight reel, he had a guaranteed strip sack, except the attack hand was the left hand. So your attack hand was your left hand, and it was a right-handed quarterback, so you got the ball away. And I was like, if he rips down with his right arm, you strip the ball right out of his hand, and that's your highlight reel. So
my coaches know a lot about that too, by the way. They know me on that.
That's funny. Sure. But you're a high-motor player.
Man.
Heavy experience facing the quarterback.
Man.
And then your technique would only need brushing up because he showed diversity in technique in man coverage and in zone coverage. It also comes in, makes tackles, makes big plays. He's a big contributor, which is important in a defense, is to have a player that doesn't disappear on you, right? Guys that are suddenly dodging hits. And that's one thing we'll get into in the future is injuries and head injuries and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then the only question about, like, what happened with your pro day? How did your... the short area quickness drills thing we answered. And we question his music choice on his highlight because we think we could have done a little better there. So that'll be the end of episode 2 with Shannon Swain, and I'm Jared Malott, and we'll see you again in the future, man.
See y'all next time.